Hi, everyone. Today, because of the content of what I want to talk about, let me start by honoring an illustrious, celebrated ancestor from the past. So please bear with me. So moving on to the content. Well, I think nowadays, today, we are dealing with a global attempt at establishing a dictatorship everywhere, all over the place, but with a special character, meaning that in the past, dictatorships were mostly about controlling our bodies in a way, where we could go or not go, what we could do or not do, how we could or not move about. And secondarily only, they were about controlling our thought and our expression, what we could write or not, or talk about or not. Nowadays, it's mostly about controlling our minds, what we are allowed to think, and influencing or dictating what we are able or we can think, what we can talk about, what we can discuss, and what we cannot do about that. So nowadays, modern dictators, they are trying mostly to control the minds, to manipulate the minds, and to just directly influence them if they can. So I still think democracy is the best system for governance, not the ideal, not perfect, but the best we have. And it's the most compatible with happiness, with humanity at its best. It's the system that protects us in a way from dictatorship to some extent. It allows us to be who we are. But nowadays, I think we have politicians all over the place who are not really in tune with democracy because they are mostly interested in safeguarding their own interests. They are trying to please the ones who voted for them, but also they are trying mostly to please the ones who paid for their elections, the ones who are still paying them, the ones who own them to some extent. And such politicians, unfortunately, they lack vision. They lack a vast horizon. They are not really here trying to be at the service of humanity, of the planet. Even of their own countries, they are not here to protect the people. They are here to safeguard the interests of the ones who own them, who pay them, the groups that influence them, that ensure them that they might stay in power sometimes. And they have no real horizons. They navigate according to the needs of the moment and to the influences and the interests of the moment. They are poor politicians in a way. And well, I would say many of them nowadays, unfortunately, they went already for intellectual prostitution, as did lots and lots of people all over the world. What I mean here is that if we consider normal prostitution, well, in normal prostitution, we are selling our bodies, sometimes to the greatest bidders, and it's already degrading our soul to some extent. We are allowing our bodies to be invaded by other people, by their energy. We are allowing people to use our bodies, and many times this is in shock with our dignity, with our freedom, with our possibilities for love. But here, I would say that the most defining characteristic of human beings is not much the body, is mostly the mind, consciousness, and our soul. So what happens is that intellectual prostitution, to me, is a lot worse. When we sell our mind because someone pays us a lot of money, because we feel somehow valued, because other people are paying us to use our best skills to their interest, we are sacrificing many times our inner dignity, and we are placing ourselves at their service without really inquiring about what are the consequences. Now, intellectual prostitution is happening all over the place. Politicians, scientists, entrepreneurs are in many ways selling their minds to money and to interests, not even really worrying too much about what will be the consequences for humanity and the future of humanity. Well, I don't think this is a good situation. I think we should strive in different directions, but however, we have here a problem because those opposing the main narratives of the powers to be, and in this situation, mainly the narratives that are constructed and paid for by the big global corporations of this world, what we have them is that they usually are persecuted and silenced if possible. They are either physically suppressed or intellectually suppressed to the best dictators can do it. And, well, those people usually, they are not really striving for their survival. They are striving for ideals. Many times they are even sacrificing themselves to higher values, many times at the service of humanity. But on the opposite sense, I would say that lots of our population nowadays is suffering from a sort of a global Stockholm syndrome. In the Stockholm syndrome, people fall in love with their oppressors, where the bandits that are damaging them, because those have the power, and sometimes we try to just obey the power with, the way we feel that being in love with the powers to be and obeying them, allowing them to humiliate us and to control us is a way to survive. And indeed, I would say this global scare we are going through in many different ways, all this oppression, all this attempt at suppressing everyone that thinks differently, is making lots of people choose to quit being themselves, to quit their freedom, to feel comfortable in a way also falling in love with the dictators. And this time we have subtle dictators. It's no longer so much military dictatorship, it's not so much direct use of power, it's the manipulation and power over the minds, over what we are allowed to think and to feel. Although, of course, also oppressing us by not allowing us to go where we want to go. This is nowadays one of the best tools for oppression. Well, I think that we do have some ways out of this. We must resist. We must fight back. We must stop betraying our own soul, and we must fight for democracy, also knowing that systems that silence people, that suppress freedom, they are systems that go against human happiness, because human happiness needs expansion, needs freedom, needs creativity, needs growth. And usually dictatorships do not allow that. They shrink people. They reduce them to obeying. They allow them to go or to grow only in the directions that are acknowledged as the good ones. They don't like people to be on their own. They don't like free thought. They don't like real creativity. They don't like free expression. They want to control. And of course, I think we must strive towards being still allowed to behave according to our own consciousness, to be creative, to expand, to grow, to be with other people. And we should strive to be with other people in harmony, not in division. It's a classic, going back at least to the Roman times, that dictators divide people and divide nations and divide tribes so they can rule better, so they can keep global control over them. They have the higher power. This is happening, I think, nowadays also. And one of the best ways to really fight against all of this, in my own view, is not fighting the police, is not uh, moving against anyone, is not really insulting anyone. It's quite the opposite. It's asserting that we want to be in love with everyone and everything. We want to not to tolerate, but to be in fraternity and respect with everyone else. We want diversity. Don't want everything to be homogeneous. We don't want to run towards the directions that are assigned. We want to be free to explore. And of course, many times it's better to really be peaceful, somehow, sometimes silent, sometimes asserting our own voice, but peaceful, loving each other, sharing, respecting, not in a fighting mode, but in a fraternity and in a love mode. And that is a great way for revolution. But let's not just submit to power and to the manipulation of the mind, but please let us fight against that by being who we are, asserting our right to be who we are, searching for our happiness along with the happiness of the whole of humanity, and still fighting for freedom, but in a mode that is no longer compatible with hatred. It's about dignity. It's about love, really. It's about being in harmony with the rest of humanity. Yeah, this is the idea for this moment. So if you like, of course, comment, share, subscribe the channel, and I'll be around.